Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries and brokers from across the country. Joining me on this segment is Jackie Hirsch. She's the founder of Crowne Atlantic out of Orlando, Florida. Jackie, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
Jackie, tell me a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping?
We've been selling companies since 2004. I've been selling companies since 1998. We help really stable, cash flowing, successful businesses sell. And there's companies that specialize in all sorts of things, but our buyers want consistent, stable cash flow with great books and records and a business where they can take to the next level. So they're looking for a foundation that somebody's created and an entrepreneur looking to retire.
So for these sellers, if they've been in business a long time, I'd imagine for a lot of them, this is the first time they're even going through this process. So they probably don't know a whole bunch. What are the major questions that you get from them when they finally reach out to you and say that they want to sell?
You know, there's a lot of soul searching that they have to do. And we talk about this all the time, and I didn't realize this, but one of my first deals that I went out on, I was 22 and the seller was 65 and he started crying. And I was like, oh, and I had to figure out what to do in this scenario. And it's happened many times since. This is a creation that they have made. And they have really controlled it, even more than like a child. People joke it's a child, but it's really even more than that. It's their creation from nothing, typically. And many of my entrepreneurs started with nothing. So a lot of it is what the legacy is going to be. How is their transition? What's going to happen? And then how do they deal with it? They have tax questions. They have physical questions of where they need to physically be. There's a company that I'm selling next week, and the seller said, I have this vacation that I planned and I leave March 15th. I'll be 2 days short of the training time. And I said, listen, we will get that okayed by the buyer. It is fine. You need to go. When you come back, if he has any questions, he'll call you, and it'll be fine. But we have to have that conversation and make sure that they really feel comfortable with the process. And I talk to them about all the different steps with financing, about finding the right suitor, the right buyer. And it's not just about selling a company, it's about making a match.
And it certainly is a huge topic. I mean, for folks that are new to selling their business, if they don't even know what the process looks like, they must do a lot of Googling or maybe looking online for information, and they might run across a lot of misinformation. Do you hear a lot of misinformation or misconceptions that people hold when they reach out to you in regards to
Sure.
selling their businesses?
Sure. I mean, again, the company I'm selling next week, he's like, well, my friend, he just sold his company and it was 10 times earnings. Well, his friend's company was netting 5 million. Okay. EBIT. Okay. His company was netting 500,000 EBIT. Still good, but it's going to be a different sale and it's going to be a different EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, which is typically how multiples are created. And multiples change, not just only by industry, but they also change by size. So a multiple of something that's netting 100,000 versus something that's netting 10 million are completely different. So I think it's important to understand how to value the business, what elements you need as an owner. And I also think an important step for owners to take is to step back and ask, would they pay that amount for their business that they want in their mind? So if you want 10 million for your business, would you pay 10 million? If you had 10 million and you wanted a business, would you buy it? And I think that starts to make them think, because sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes they have something really spectacular and sometimes it's no. And they have to really think about that. So I think that it's important to look at it from a few different perspectives. And then always, clean books and records make a huge difference. And I think a lot of times sellers will say, oh, well, if they're in the business, they'll understand. No, they won't understand, and neither will the bank. So you need to show what the business is making and pay the taxes if you want to maximize the value of the business.
So this whole series was inspired by the headlines in the news of the Great Resignation and so many people leaving,
Mhm.
wanting to leave corporate America and start working for themselves. Um, could you give us a little bit of insight of what it's been like in your area? Are you finding more potential buyers in the market shopping, and is that motivating sellers that have been on the fence?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. First of all, I'm in Florida. So the market in Florida is very different than in other states. There's a ton of people moving up to Florida, and we've had that for a long time. And sometimes when it's cold here, we joke and during the winter, and we say, "That's it, I'm moving to Florida." But it's a joke, and I know Mark, you're in Chicago, so you might not see the humor in it. But sometimes, it gets cold here too. But we have a lot of people that want to move here. We have many people that also want to retire here, but retirement, I think, has changed dramatically. So, yes, we have people resigning from large corporations or changing and doing something that they've always wanted to do, and they want to do it in Florida. So, we see multiples here very strong. Inventory moves very quickly, and there's not a lot of it. We've always had a complete surplus of buyers and a deficit of sellers, but now it's even more so. And the multiples have increased even more at this point.
Mentioning like multiples and EBITDA, as you mentioned earlier, how does it
Mhm.
happen that we get these crazy, meme stock news where people are like, oh, micro hard corporation just sold for 100 times its revenue.
Right.
Like, how does this happen?
Well, that's a really good question. There was recently an electric car that was valued at higher than GM, which just seems hard for me to wrap my head around. But it's about stockholders and public participation. In a private business, you don't have those same type of multiples, and a bank has to make that cash flow. When you have a public company and you have all these people willing to give the company money, essentially when they buy stock, they don't have the same type of cash flow constraints as far as repaying debt, because they're essentially giving away equity, and it's a whole different structure. So what we deal with small businesses, basically priced 20 million and under, it's just a whole other way of cash flowing deals, and it's about churning cash. And that's why that perspective is completely different, and you'll never see those ginormous multiples unless it's some sort of radical invention that's going to change the world. So what we're dealing with essentially are brick and mortar businesses. Even our online businesses, you could almost say, are like a brick and mortar business, even if they're drop shipped or even if they're SaaS, um, because it's about recurring revenue and cash flow. So our buyers are looking for cash flow. It's almost like a dividend stock sometimes is valued differently than a stock that doesn't pay dividends, because the non-dividend stock will have more cash they can work with that they don't have to pay out.
Great insight. Jackie, what inspired you to get into the business, into this field, and help sellers sell their businesses? How did you get
Mm-hmm.
started?
So that's always an interesting question. Sometimes when you're 22 and you do something, you don't know how hard it is because you just think everything's hard because everything's new. So you just do it. But for me, I've always loved business. I've had a number of businesses myself that I've started and sold, or started and grown. I invest in companies. Like I personally invest in, I've done safes and convertible notes and Series A rounds and dividend purchases and equity purchases, like in companies that are small businesses. And that's just something, it's fun for me. And I relate to the other business owners because I started with nothing, and no loans. I didn't have family money, and I wanted to grow something. So I've been interested in business since I was a kid, like a little kid. And one of my friends even talks about in school when they went around the room and said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" I said, "I'm going to own a number of companies," which I do. And it's really fun. I think business is fun. I think it's fun to talk about business. All my friends own their own companies. Even my friends who are women own their own companies. And to have so many female entrepreneur friends is amazing. It's like a lifeline godsend for me. But also my male friends all own their own companies. They either own their own law firm, or they own their own medical practice, or they own their own construction company. And so my whole world, even my social world, involves all business owners. And that part is, it's energizing, it's exciting. And so business for me was always just so exciting and fun. It's about creating. And while some people, maybe with an artistic background might not see it as art, I see it as art. Like, you create something from nothing. You make a dream come true. You make a process better. You make a building happen. You make a service happen. You know, the cleaning team that cleans our home, they're amazing. And I'm friends with the owner. And I tell her all the time, they make our lives so much better. Like, just everything that they do. So as a business owner, you have the opportunity to make people's dreams come true. And one of my sellers' dreams are to retire, or to move to the next level, or to finally realize all the cash in the business value that they've created and sell it for them. My seller that's going to get $5 million in the next few weeks is very excited. It's the most money they've ever received in a lump sum. And they've been doing that business for 42 years, and they're going to retire. And it's very exciting for them. So to be a part of that, it's incredible. And I feel lucky that I happened upon something that I was really good at when I was young. And after 23 years of, plowing the fields and sowing the seeds, we get a lot of referrals. I feel very, very lucky for that.
That is amazing, and congratulations on all your success, because I can completely relate, because I'm passionate about business, and that's why I chose to report on business for the last 12 years. I absolutely love it. The entrepreneur, the business owner is like the ultimate creator, as you said. So Jackie, before I ask you my last question, for folks listening considering selling, and they'd like to, work with a business intermediary, but they don't even know where to start or how to choose one, what would you recommend that they look for in a business intermediary? And how soon should they, start looking before they're deciding to sell?
I sold an HVAC business a couple weeks ago, and I first spoke with them in 2014.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a long sales cycle. It's not, what I do isn't always fast. The business that I'm selling next week, I met with them at the end of, first week in August, and they were referred to me, and they said, I want to put on the market next week. Okay, so sometimes you get that, and that's what we did, and we put on the market the next week, and we had it sold by the end of the year. So you get different types, but I think if you're thinking about it and you don't have an extra exit strategy, you should meet with a broker. And I think you should meet with a few brokers. And I think you really need to understand what your business is. Is it local? Is it relocatable? Is it, how does the business broker work? Do they package the business properly? One of the things I see is that businesses are not packaged properly, and fewer than 10% of businesses that go to market actually sell. Most people don't even know that statistic. It's kind of horrific. In our office, we have like a 90% sales rate, but that is because we are very specific about what we take, and we have it packaged really well so that a buyer could buy it. So you've got to understand what your process is, what their process is. They have to be aligned with your goals. It's going to depend upon where you live. And, there's a lot of people that do, business brokerage, but sometimes they're kind of part retired and they do a deal here and there. That's not what we do in our office. We always aim to get top sales, or one of the top in the state of Florida, but definitely one of the top in Central Florida. And we always, work full time. And I joke kind of jokingly, but from January to May, it's 7 days a week. I mean, it's a very busy time of year, and we work really hard. And that's how we close so many deals. That's how we break the records. So you've got to figure out what you want in a broker and how their hustle is, and go from there.
Great insight. Jackie, for folks listening right now who would love to connect with you if they're considering selling, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Sure. You can always email me at jackie@crowneatlantic.com, and that's Crowne with an E. That's the kind of business decisions you make when you're 26, is you put an E at the end of Crowne. But anyway, so it's jackie@crowneatlantic.com. And then our office is 407-478-4101. We primarily work in the South. We're licensed in the state of Florida, but we also sell companies in Alabama and Tennessee. So it just depends. And we definitely work with online companies all the time. And we have a ton of online buyers. But again, that needs to be packaged properly. And when somebody puts an online business for sale, a lot of times it's not packaged properly and somebody's not able to purchase it. So those are also important to get done correctly. So I'm
Jackie,
happy to answer any questions.
this has been terrific, Jackie. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today. I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was really a pleasure. I feel honored that you invited us to be a part of what you're doing. And what you're doing is really like documenting the business world. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. That was Jackie Hirsch, and she's the founder of Crowne Atlantic. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.